The evening had that gray, city kind of hush, the kind that slips under doors and settles in the corners like it's been there all along, waiting for you to finally notice it. The rain had started early, a thin, steady line scribbling down the window of our sixth-floor apartment in the West 70s, the taxis below moving like slow yellow thoughts through puddles. The smell of coffee still clung to the kitchen though it was nearly 7, and I'd set the table for 2 out of habit, 2 plates, 2 glasses, 2 quiet chairs angled like they were listening to each other's breathing. They weren't, not anymore. It had been happening in inches. The empty dinners where the clink of fork to plate did more talking than we did. The way Nadia started to announce her showers when she got home, leaving her phone on the kitchen counter like an exhibit, screen dimmed, face down, harmless prop in a play I wasn't invited to rewrite. She'd laugh sometimes, not with me, at a message, a private light, and the laugh didn't belong to the room, like it had rented itself out to another life. I told myself we were tired, everyone's tired. I told myself the seasons do this, summer turns to fall, and people get quiet because the light goes early and you start to feel the weight of your own name. But there were small betrayals that collected like lint. The way she forgot the story she told me yesterday and retold it with different names, different places. The way we drifted into the word I and then into nothing at all. The way she began to close doors softly, beautifully, like a skill she'd been practicing. Thursday, she texted me she'd be late. Client dinner, Midtown, don't wait up, love you like a receipt generated at checkout. I stared at the words until they dulled. It was raining then too, of course it was. The city has manners that way. It knows when to dress your fear in something familiar. I made soup. I reheated the soup. I threw the soup away, too much apology in it. At 9, I set a small Bluetooth speaker beneath the couch, tucked deep behind the magazines and the basket of spare throw blankets we never used. A second one inside the hallway credenza, behind the winter gloves. The third one on top of the kitchen cabinets where dust lived and secrets could breathe. It wasn't revenge. That's too clean a word. It was curiosity with a spine. The speakers were paired to my phone, to an app that listened when I couldn't be in the room, that could turn this apartment, our apartment, into a confession booth without a priest. At 10, the elevator made a soft throat sound, and then the hallway took a breath, and then the lock turned. Nadia came in with rain in her hair and a smile that felt rehearsed. Her coat smelled like night air and someone else's cologne, but grief is a poor chemist and I didn't let myself name it. She kissed my cheek, and it was the kind of kiss you give to a picture of someone you used to know. The kettle hissed. She asked about my day. I told her it was fine. We were under studies playing the leads. She showered. I waited. She came back in a large sweater that wasn't one of mine, sleeves long enough to hide her hands. She curled up on the couch, staring at a show she'd already watched. You okay? I asked, like a tourist, careful with the language. Just tired, she said. Tomorrow's early. When she fell asleep, or faked it, I got up and went to the bedroom. I set my phone on the dresser, face down, and hit record, not on the camera, but on the audio that pulled in from the speakers I'd placed earlier, the ones I told myself were for a podcast setup I never started. Then I left. Down the stairwell, out into the silver rain that felt like TV static on my face, around the block, past the deli with the fluorescent oranges and the bored cat in the window, past the bar where late laughter thins out like old paint. I walked until I felt the city move through me like a river that didn't know my name. At 12:23, the audio caught the door. The laugh, not hers, his, softer than I imagined and somehow meaner for it. The app transcribed a few words automatically, jittery and imperfect. Thought he'd be asleep. Missed you. God, the rain. Don't be loud. I sat on a stoop 3 buildings down with rain on my collar and read those fragments like they were the last page of a book that had lost all its chapters. When the speaker caught the sound of my chair scraping the floor, an old noise, a familiar ghost, he asked, "He here?" And she said no, like a wish. I didn't storm back in. That belongs to another version of me, a louder movie. I walked the block again, let the lights blink their patient language, let the city hum. I could hear them not talking, the way people who shouldn't be together make silence into a kind of shelter. The app kept feeding me scraps. A glass set down too hard, a whispered wait, the low slide of a zipper like a string pulled on a thought that won't hold. The rain got braver. So did I, if standing still counts. At 1:04, I went home. The hallway smelled like damp wool, and whatever life had just passed through it. The door opened on its own quiet. Inside, the apartment felt rearranged by absence. The couch was straighter, a cushion turned over. One of our picture frames angled toward the window as if to watch the storm. The speaker under the couch still whispered the echo of something that had just died. Nadia sat up when she saw me, eyes huge and still, like they were holding their breath. "Hey," she said, voice small, a child in the wrong room. "You're soaked." I set my keys down and their sound was a verdict. I picked up my phone, stopped the recording. The silence between us widened into a room of its own. I went for a walk, I said. It's a good night for it. She nodded too fast. I fell asleep, she said, and the sentence broke on its own lie. I don't know if he was in the stairwell already, if he took the fire escape, if he was still in the coat closet holding his breath like a paper cup. I only knew that the apartment had changed its shape and couldn't change back. I think you should tell me, I said, or you can tell yourself, but it should be told. She looked at the rain beating the window like it wanted in. I don't want to hurt you, she said. Then don't, I said, and it came out kinder than I felt. Her mouth trembled. She reached for my hand and stopped, fingers suspended in the gray light like a bird that forgot how to land. I made a mistake, she said, just once, and the speaker behind the gloves, still on, caught her voice and returned it to us as a softer echo and afterthought. Once is a parable. Once is a knife you say sorry to. I didn't say anything. Not for a long time. The rain did the talking. The fridge offered its low animal hum. Somewhere in a neighboring apartment, someone laughed at something that didn't matter. Nadia wiped at her cheek like she was trying to erase something that was older than tonight. Go to bed, I said finally. We'll talk in the morning. She nodded, grateful to be spared the mercy. She disappeared down the hall, a moving silhouette in low light, and I sat on the floor, back against the wall, phone in my lap, playing the recording I already knew I'd keep and hate and keep. The speakers gave me the house as it had been for the last hour. Not mine, not ours. In the dark, with the rain refusing to end, I heard the faintest noise from the bedroom closet, the kind a person makes when they remember they still exist. I didn't get up, I didn't look. I turned the volume to 0 and listened to nothing at all. And in that nothing, something collapsed quietly, beautifully, like a building scheduled for demolition that still remembered it had windows. The closet door shifted a fraction in the dark. A breath snared inside wood, and the city went very still, as if the night itself were deciding whether to keep a secret or let it walk out into the rain. Morning was a thin wash of light across the kitchen tiles, the kind that forgives nothing and softens everything anyway. The rain had exhausted itself into a damp hush over the city. The traffic hummed like a distant generator. I made coffee with the care of a surgeon who knows the patient won't survive, but is determined to be gentle. 2 cups, then 1. I poured the second down the sink and watched it spiral like a plan. In the bedroom, the closet door hung calmly, innocently, the way doors do after a crime. I didn't open it. The apartment had made a truce with itself overnight, or maybe it was just tired. Nadia stayed behind the bathroom door longer than necessary, the shower running until the mirror surrendered to steam. When she came out, her eyes were red but not new to the practice. She moved quietly, grateful for gravity. I'll work from home, she said, making it an offering. Let's talk, please. I nodded and let the nod fall between us like the last leaf on a branch. The man, whoever he had been inside this perimeter of our things, had left without a footprint. It annoyed me. I wanted the indifference of scuff marks, a button, anything that left a bruise on the day. But the other man's talent was absence. That was the shape he knew how to make. After she retreated to the bedroom with her laptop, I pulled the audio into my headphones and listened because pain wants to know its own architecture. What I heard was not a movie. It was quieter, clumsier. He whispered like a person who bargains with silence. She apologized to a glass for setting it down too hard. He made a joke that died immediately. At one point she said, I don't know why I'm doing this, and no one answered her, not even herself. The affair wasn't a fire, it was a fog. At noon I left the apartment, walked to the river. The sky stretched a polite gray, the city wearing its malaise like a well-cut coat. Couples passed with leashed dogs that looked better at trust than either of us had lately. I called nobody. My phone showed me a text from Nadia. Please come back, we should talk. I don't want to lose you. The words felt like the kind you throw into a hallway and hope they stick to the walls. In the pocket across from my heart, I kept a small flash drive, years of a habit. Exporting backups, naming folders with dates like sutures across time. That afternoon, I added a new folder to the drive, Room Tone. Inside it, files with names I couldn't say out loud, times stamped to the minute, all of them small, all of them heavy. I didn't know why I was keeping them. Insurance. A mirror. Proof that silence has a sound when you press your ear to it. I thought about the other man, how he must have looked at our couch and seen a neutral place, a geography without history. I thought about his hands, careful, maybe shaking. I thought about his shoes by our door if he took them off, how they would have faced outward or inward, and what that meant. I thought about how people name each other in secret, the private nicknames made of breath and guilt, and how those names evaporate in daylight like bad dreams. When I got back, Nadia was at the table, the same table we'd eaten honeymoon pasta at when the stove didn't work and we laughed about it. She had a notebook open and a pen caught between her fingers like a truce flag. I don't expect you to forgive me, she said. I just need to tell the truth. I met him at a client event. It was nothing. it became something. I kept thinking I could make it stop by pretending it had never started. "What's his name?" I asked, and the question felt like removing a splinter you've been pretending was part of your finger. "Luca," she said, and the name felt expensive and wrong in our kitchen. She stopped. "He's not important, but important is only a word you assign after you count the damage. Did you mean to choose him?" I asked. She shook her head. "I meant not to choose anything. I was tired of being only myself. With him, I felt like someone I didn't know yet." I looked at the window, the city paler than usual, like it had skipped breakfast. "And with me?" I asked. She swallowed. "With you I felt seen, known, and sometimes trapped inside the person I used to be." That sentence sat between us like a chair that had just broken under its own weight. I could find no anger that would stay lit, only grief, tidy as a folded shirt. I stood. "I'm going to take a few nights," I said. "I'll stay at Ethan's." Ethan is a good friend's name in another story. In ours it was Michael. I didn't correct myself. The truth was spilling clumsy. "Pack a bag," I said. "Give us the apartment for a week. I need to hear the rooms without you in them." She nodded, relief and terror sharing a glass of water. "Of course," she said. She stood and went to the bedroom. I heard zippers opening like the sounds a map makes when you fold it wrong. While she packed, I texted an old neighbor, Hannah, who knew how to be kind without making a ceremony of it. "Spare room's open," she replied. "Key under the mat with the crack. Bring wine, not stories." I smiled in spite of myself. When Nadia came out with a small suitcase, she paused at the door as if the apartment might speak up for her. "I'm sorry," she said, "for all the quiet, for the noise too." She waited for me to say something she could wear like a coat. I said nothing. She left softly, like she had rehearsed leaving all her life. The first night alone, the apartment was large in an unfriendly way. Empty rooms make a sound, low, like a throat clearing before a breakup. I sat on the floor of the living room and listened to the traffic breeze. On the coffee table, I put the flash drive and the small speaker, two artifacts in a tiny museum. I played the recording again, not because I needed to hurt, but because I needed to place the furniture in the story. At the timestamp where a glass touched down, I looked at the faint ring on the wood and nodded to the ghost. Sleep arrived like a tired bus late, crowded with strangers. In the in-between, grief came in unremarkable images. The way her hair used to smell like rain before the rain meant other things. The morning we bought the ugly blue mug because the barista chipped it and laughed. The time we left a movie early because the real world felt kinder. I cried quietly into the sleeve of a hoodie I didn't deserve to keep. The city offered the hum again. It was merciful that way. On the second day, a DM came through from an unknown account. "You don't know me. You don't have to reply. But if this is about Nadia and a guy named Luca, you should know he's done this before. He finds people who need a new version of themselves and loans it out at a rate they can't afford." The message didn't sign itself. It didn't need to. The city is small when you divide it by regret. I started sleeping on the right side of the bed, not because it was mine, but because it was where the morning light hit first, and I needed to remember that the day kept arriving even when it had no business doing so. I started keeping the windows open a little, letting the night whisper its endless vowels, letting the rain, if it came, say what it knew how to say about cleaning and about failure. I threw out a few things, not hers. The detritus of us, ticket stubs, a broken corkscrew, the jar with 2 foreign coins we said we'd add to someday. On day 3, I saw him. On Columbus, crossing against the light with the arrogance of someone who believes consequences are for later. He wasn't handsome in the way that lasts. He was handsome like a promise is handsome before it breaks. He walked with shoulders that had memorized rooms. He wore a navy coat that made the rain look curated. I wanted to walk past him and be a person who doesn't notice. I wasn't that person. "Luca," I said, the name tasting like a foreign word that pretends to be easy. He turned and found me with the calm of a man who's prepared every look and every answer. "Hey," he said, the way you might say hello to the building that contains your favorite bar. "We should talk," I said. "Or not," he said and smiled like a shrug. The smile made me tired. We stood under a scaffolding that kept the rain off our hair and did nothing for our bones. "She told me it was over," he said before I could ask the question that would even make sense. "I told her I don't do messy, but it's always messy, isn't it? That's the point." He looked at the passing traffic and shrugged again, a man giving away spare gestures. "You're angry," he observed, like weather. "No," I said. "Anger's a bright thing, this is gray." He laughed, a small, admiring sound. "That's good," he said. "Write that down." "I already did," I replied, and it surprised me, the spine in my voice. He put his hands in his pockets and leaned against a post as if the city were a friend he owed money. "She's good," he said. "She deserves someone who can make her feel new." He looked at me then, truly. "Maybe that isn't you anymore." "Maybe," I said, "but new isn't better, it's just new. We let the traffic translate us into silence. A woman passed with an umbrella blooming like a black flower. A bus hissed a sigh it had been holding for blocks. "You'll be fine," he said finally, and meant it in the way men mean "I won." He pushed off the post and stepped into the rain on purpose, as if to prove a theory about weather and skin. I didn't follow him, I didn't punch him. The image came and went like a sparrow. I went home to the apartment that had learned to breathe without us. I stood at the window and watched the city forgive itself again. Then I gathered the speakers gently, like an old habit that had done its job, and placed them in a drawer I rarely opened. I left the flash drive on the table, a small black square that knew too much. My phone vibrated. Nadia at the door, a suitcase heavier than last time, the rain threading her hair into dark lines. "He's gone," she said, voice steady, eyes searching the room for the person she remembered me being. "I need to talk to my husband." The word felt like a bird that found its way back to the wrong window. I stepped aside, and the apartment held its breath. She put the suitcase down by the door the way people put flowers at memorials, quietly, with the knowledge that the gesture cannot raise the dead. The city had switched to that late afternoon light that flatters everything and forgives nothing. The radiator clicked softly. Somewhere above us, a child ran across a room and then stopped, as if reminded by a voice we couldn't hear. Nadia didn't cross the room at first. She looked at the couch like it might file a report. Her hands were empty of explanations. "Can we sit?" she asked, and I nodded. We sat with a polite cushion between us, two diplomats negotiating the borders of a former country. She exhaled slowly, the kind of breath that tries to carry a month inside it. "I ended it," she said. "I told him this morning." He said a lot of pretty things that sounded like lines. I didn't believe him. I think I never did. She ran her thumb along a seam in the cushion until the seam seemed to complain. I kept trying to figure out why I started. I think it was loneliness that dressed itself as freedom. I watched her profile against the washed light, the face I knew, altered by a foreign season. "I won't try to sell you a future you don't want," she said. I need to own what I did, without excuses. I knew what I was doing in small ways, and I told myself the smallness made it kind." She lifted her eyes to mine. "It wasn't." We let the radiator count out a few beats. "Do you want to stay married?" I asked, the question stripped to bone. Nadia blinked at the word like it had surprised her by still existing. "I want to stay honest," she said. "If honest means we're married, yes. If honest means we aren't, I'll accept it. I won't beg you to keep bleeding for something that needs stitches instead." I thought about stitches. About neat lines bringing edges back together, about scars that tell the weather. "I recorded the apartment," I said. Her throat moved, her eyes didn't. "I figured," she whispered. The sound felt doubled like guilt. I nodded. "It's not a weapon," I said. "It's a map. I needed to know where the doors were." She looked down and smiled without humor. "There were too many," she said. "We talked like careful people. No raised voices, no grand speeches. We were two humans holding a heavy thing that could break both of us if we slipped." She told me the first text, the first coffee, the first lie that was also a truth, working late, how common phrases can house uncommon betrayals. She didn't cry until she described an ordinary Tuesday afternoon where she had almost texted me, "I'm lost," and changed it to "pick up milk," because milk is a thing that can be done. I don't know what forgiveness is in a world that keeps changing its terms, but compassion is sometimes a chair you offer to someone who can't stand anymore. I got up and poured water, set it in front of her like a small attempt at kindness. She looked at it like a gift she didn't trust. "I'm sorry," she said again, but differently, like a person reading the right page for the first time. Evening slid in with its quiet rumor of blue. Streetlights clicked. The city turned its attention to its own breathing. "Do you want me to leave?" she asked. "Tonight?" I looked around at the rooms that had learned to be plural without us. "No," I said, "not tonight. Tonight we don't make a permanent decision in temporary weather." She nodded, and we agreed, like sober people, to talk more tomorrow. We made dinner in the kind of silence that isn't punishment, just the sound of two people building sentences they aren't ready to speak. She chopped onions, I washed rice. The small domestic noises arranged themselves into something almost like music. After, we did dishes without ceremony. Her hand touched mine once by accident, and we both pretended it was the sink's idea. When it was late enough for pretense to get tired, she stood in the bedroom doorway. "Should I take the couch?" she asked. The question was tender in its own brave way. "Take the bed," I said. "I'm not sleeping much anyway." She shook her head. "We can share," she offered, not as a romance but as a ceasefire. I considered the shape of my body next to hers, the choreography of ghosts. "All right," I said. We lay back to back, inches that felt like miles. The rain was gone. The night was dry and exact. In the dark, she spoke softly. "I thought I was protecting you by lying. I realized I was just protecting the story I liked about myself. I let the words land and stay. I thought I was protecting us by not asking, I said. I realized I was just protecting my comfort. The admissions were small lights in a long corridor. At 2 a.m., the city yawned. A siren somewhere tried on its costume and then got bored. She reached a hand behind her and found my forearm, a gentle touch that didn't ask for anything. "Can you sleep?" she whispered. "Not well," I said, "but I'm here." She nodded against the pillow. "Thank you for that." We didn't hold hands. It would have been too much or maybe not enough. We let proximity mean what it could. In the morning, she made coffee like she used to, humming without knowing, the melody a private one that the apartment remembered before I did. The smell made me want to cry. She handed me a mug and our fingers brushed, and this time we didn't pretend it was an accident. "I booked a counselor," she said, setting the phone face up as if to reverse a spell. "For me, for us if you want. If not, for me." "Okay," I said, and it meant I heard her, not that I'd made a promise. We sat at the table and looked at the steam like it could tell us something. "What do you need from me?" she asked. I thought about it. "Patience," I said. "Honesty, quiet that isn't hiding. And I need to forgive myself if I can't find my way back to the version of us you want." She nodded with her whole face. "I can offer the first two," she said. "I can't control the last one, but I can make space for it." After breakfast, she went to shower. I stood in the doorway and looked at our reflection doubled in the fogged mirror, two outlines that could be any two people. It struck me as merciful that steam makes everyone look like a possibility. She turned, saw me, and held my gaze like a person in a photograph who realizes she is being seen. "Stay," she said, the smallest request. I stayed. When the mirror cleared, a faint bloom of our faces returned, hers searching, mine undecided, and between us, in the glass, the room's doorway held the pale silhouette of the suitcase by the front door, a reminder that leaving always keeps its options open. The city gave us a bright, brittle morning, a thin sun, the kind that turns everything honest without warming much. The street below had dried into a chalkboard of yesterday's scribbles, tire marks and footprints that said we were here, then we weren't. I opened the window to let the cold in on purpose. The air felt clean the way endings do when they stop pretending they're beginnings. Nadia was at the table, hair still damp, wearing a sweatshirt I bought her at a street fair the summer we believed in street fairs. She looked like someone practicing an old language, careful with the vowels. "Walk?" she asked. I nodded. We left the apartment with our hands in our own pockets. The hallway smelled like laundry and someone's toast. The elevator stopped on 3 to pick up a neighbor with a plant too green for November. We smiled. We didn't explain ourselves to strangers. In the park, the leaves were almost done with their drama. The last few clung stubbornly, rust and gold and the exact color of a memory that doesn't want to be filed away. We walked without strategy. She spoke first. "I kept wanting you to save me from the thing I was doing," she said. "That isn't fair, that isn't love." I let the sentence hang on a low branch and kept moving. "I kept wanting you to be the person you were when we met," I said. "That isn't fair either." We found a bench that remembered us. We sat. The cold made us honest with our posture. She turned to me. "I'm willing to rebuild," she said. "Board by board, no guarantees, just work." I searched my pockets for a word I could hand her. I found a truth instead. "I don't know that I can be married to the us that survives this," I said. "I can love you and still let you go." I thought those were incompatible. They aren't. She nodded slowly, eyes bright and steady. "Will you hate me?" she asked. "No," I said. "Hate is heavy. I need my hands." She laughed once, quiet, grateful that the world hadn't completely closed its fist. "Then let me make it easier," she said. "I'll take the lease on the sublet in Brooklyn for a few months. You stay, keep the apartment, keep the furniture you like. I'll bring the rest in a car service, and we won't make a ceremony out of it." The plan sounded like dignity. I took a breath and it didn't hurt going in. "Okay," I said. "We'll get a mediator for the paperwork. We'll go slow with the language. We won't be cruel." She wiped her cheek and didn't apologize for water being water. "Thank you," she said. We sat in the noisy quiet that parks offer, a symphony of dogs negotiating treaties, joggers calibrating their breathing, the city inventing itself again behind the trees. When we got home, the apartment didn't flinch. We peeled the day off our shoulders and folded it neatly. She packed a smaller bag with focus. I made 2 sandwiches with a hunger that felt like coming back from a long swim. We ate at the counter, elbows close, not touching. "Do you want the blue mug?" I asked, uncharacteristically practical. She smiled. "You keep it," she said. "It looks better on you." Before she left, she looked at the drawer where the speakers were sleeping. "You can delete it," she said softly. "Or keep it, I won't ask which. I'll live with whatever that means." I opened the drawer, held one small speaker that had carried so much of our ruin, and set it on the counter. "I think I'm done letting objects narrate my life," I said. I put the flash drive in my palm, felt its small, stubborn weight, then placed it gently in the trash. Not buried, on top, visible. Goodbye, I told it. Thank you for telling me the truth. Nadia watched like a person, witnessing a graduation from a school she never meant to attend. You're a better person than I deserve, she said. I don't know about that, I said, but I'm learning to be a better person than I was. She reached out. I let her hug me. It was a human hug, not an argument, not a petition. We let it last long enough and no longer. At the door, she turned. I will love you for a long time, she said simply, as if reporting the weather. I'll love you too, I said, the version of love that knows it's not a contract. She nodded, lifted the suitcase, and left me with the soft aftermath of wheels on a runner and the click of a latch that didn't sound like an ending, only like a door doing its job. The afternoon stretched itself thin and bright. I opened the windows wide and let the city in. The hum returned, tender, indifferent, the way a river doesn't ask your permission to keep going. I washed the 2 plates and set one back in the cabinet behind the other, not hiding it, just acknowledging that 2 can rest without being used. I brewed coffee I didn't need, for the smell, for the ritual, for the proof that mornings would keep agreeing to arrive. I sat in her chair, no, my chair now, and watched the light move across the rug, a measured inch at a time. The rain didn't come back, the sky held. Across the street, a couple argued quietly on a balcony and then laughed because a bird did something ridiculous. Life rehearsed itself in front of me and didn't require my notes. In the evening, I texted Nadia a photograph of the blue mug on the windowsill, the city cloudy beyond it, the caption, "It looks okay here." She sent back a single line, "So do you." We didn't add more. Some days don't need a paragraph. Some truths are happiest in one sentence at a time. Night arrived without theater. I turned off lights, left the window cracked, and lay down in the center of the bed as if staking a gentle claim. The sheets smelled like detergent and a little like rain memory. I closed my eyes and waited for sleep to find me. It came sooner than I expected. Not victory, not defeat, something ordinary and miraculous. In the quiet, just before I went under, I thought of the first night we moved in, how we ate takeout on the floor, and she fell asleep against my shoulder with a fortune cookie paper stuck to her sleeve that said, "Morning light brings release." We kept it on the fridge for a year. Funny what sticks, ending beat. The morning would come again, thin and honest, touching everything without asking for permission, and for the first time in a long time, the idea didn't make me afraid. It made me reach for the window, for air, for the ordinary mercy of a day beginning with no one to perform for but myself. Of a day beginning with no one to perform for but myself.